Welcome back to another episode of the Inkwell podcast. I am joined by another great guest, Ian Miller, and he is the man behind Triple Threat Comics. So let's bring Ian on and see what he has to say about everything comic wise and everything else. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Todd. How you doing?
We're good. We're good. We're doing this podcast and we'll see where it goes. But so we'll kind of dive right into this. What really inspired you to kind of get into indie comics and create your comic or comics, I should say?
Well, I guess I've always been a storyteller as a kid, I
Hmm.
grew up reading comics, especially in the 90s. My godfather used to bring comics over for me to read when he always visit. So I was always in love with the art form.
Hmm.
And creating my own stories just really clicked for me. Yeah, as a kid, and I still do. I wanted to write and illustrate Batman, Superman, all those guys. But I wanted to tell my own stories
Hmm.
because I felt like I had a voice, and I wanted to see, where my storytelling would go. And I have to say, so far, it's been a success. You know, I have three issues in my series, Codename Hunter, which is a
Hmm.
sci-fi spy thriller. I'm
Nice.
currently working on issues 4 and 5 right now. So yeah.
No, that's awesome. I think every creator out there, whether we do comics or we're a painter, sculptor, whatever, I think all of us have a story, right? What motivates us? How did we get into it? A lot of us started as like we were young. I mean, for me, I got into comics when I was pretty young, and it just always stuck with me for some reason. And, um, you know, yeah, that's really interesting. Also, do you have any like formal education or you just kind of dove in and started writing comics and all that?
I'm glad you asked that. I do have formal education.
Nice.
I went to School of Visual Arts in Manhattan, and I have a bachelor's degree in cartooning.
Oh,
So I actually studied
fantastic.
for it. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I've been on a couple of your podcasts, so and we've talked quite a bit, but I never knew that you actually had a degree in cartooning. So it's kind of nice, get to know people in a different light when we actually are swapping the other side here. But on that note, like I would say what what's kind of been your motivations or what kind of keeps you motivated? You mentioned, your first book is pretty successful, and you're already on issues 4 and 5. So
hmm
what's that driving force there for you?
I think because of the audience, really, the readers,
Hmm.
because they're so interested in the story and the characters. They're like, well, people always come up to me and say, "When's the next issue coming out? We
Hmm.
need to see what happens next." So that's partly it, and partly is I've got more stories to tell, and I'm not gonna stop until I tell all the stories.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I am. It's I've talked to my wife, and she's a huge supporter, and she's really one of those things that motivates me because I give her an issue to read, like Luke issue 1, and she just kind of like had a moment. She liked it, but then she kind of chuckled like as she's reading it, and I'm like, oh, okay. So if you get that, whatever is comedic or you're having a good time reading it, she's a good barometer for the fan base, and the fan base is a very good motivator. They
Yes.
can tell us so many things like how we should change the characters, if we should change the characters, what's the direction we should take. I think we're as creators, we're pretty close to our projects, so we love them, but we sometimes don't see the faults in maybe making it better. And not to say that there are, like sometimes we do write perfect stories, right? We write
Yeah.
everything, but yeah, I agree with you. The fans absolutely can be a huge motivator, and getting out there and doing conventions is a big part of meeting those fans and seeing those fans. So mentioning you have a degree in cartooning, what were some of your influences? Was it more, some of the animators or cartoonists like back in the day, or what were your influences as far as like art or writing?
Okay. Well, for animation, I would say Bruce Timm. That was
Hmm.
another one. because I grew up watching Batman the Animated
Oh,
Series. I loved
yeah.
that
So good.
art form. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And sometimes I'll actually pause the VHS tapes. Again, I'm dating myself,
Yeah, no,
and I would
same.
actually mimic. Yeah, I would actually mimic how they would draw Batman.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, so that's one
interesting.
thing. Yeah. And then when I got older, I got into more of the, gritty, comics from the 80s, particularly The Dark Knight Returns,
Mhm.
because that was very energetic. It was a great idea to, rejuvenate a darker version of this beloved character. And then I got into Watchmen, which actually completely, changed the whole superhero
Yeah,
image.
I think that kind of blew people's minds when when Watchmen came out, and love or hate the film. One thing that I've really kind of changed my perspective on a lot of the superhero films today, because there are a dime a dozen now. Like technology has caught up, so it's not like the cheesy Superman movies, or even like some would say that the Batman movies with now I'm blanking here, Tim Burton Batmans with Michael Keaton,
Hmm.
that some of those were cheesy too, but now we have, generally speaking, good animations and all the computer
Hmm.
generated stuff, which helps to make superheroes come to life. And I've had to have a perspective change to where, with Watchmen specifically, like those that read the graphic novel know that the ending is way different than in the books. And um, my wife actually didn't get into comics until like early 2000s,
Hmm.
so there's so many films that we would watch, and she's like, "Oh, it's a comic." I'm like, "Yeah." And here's the graphic novel, and Watchmen was one of them. And she's like, "I really like the ending in the movie." And I have to separate it as almost like artist interpretation. What the writer, the filmmakers want to do with it. We as fans, some of us outrage, some of us don't like what they do, but it's just having that separation of, this is a film, it's a different media, it's a different way of storytelling. And the when you read the graphic novel, you're like, that's mind-blowing for something that came out in the 80s. It really was
Yeah.
interesting, and the impact that it had, like lasting impact on, oh, we can tell stories like this and they can be successful. So that's interesting. Like I talked to a bunch of people over the years, and Watchmen, although they say they love it, it never became like kind of a part of influence for them as far as like what they're
Hmm.
doing with their, whether it's an indie writing or art style or anything like that. So um that's really interesting. And as far as like being an indie publisher and doing what we do, what do you see are some of the challenges for getting your books out there?
Definitely promotion. That's the number one thing. You have to self
Mhm,
promote yourself. There's nobody that's going to help you with that because, again, you're doing this pretty much by yourself.
mhm,
If you're an indie creator and you're just a one man army, you're the writer, you're the artist, you're the colorist, the letterist, and but you have to make sure that everyone gets to see your stuff
mhm.
because, again, they're not going to come to you unless you actually show them the way.
Right. Yeah, that's marketing is a huge thing, and that's something I talk to a lot of people about, like how do we crack that nut of getting more eyes on our products, because I feel like
Yeah,
all of us could. There's enough kind of pie to go around for everybody. Comics are still, to me, I think they're still a viable commodity. People, especially nowadays, I think physical media is kind of making a little bit of a comeback. And I
yeah,
think for readers, it's like they like having a physical book. There's still the whole digital market, and
yeah,
having multiple avenues of how people can find our products is important. But the marketing side of it is always a challenge. It's it's like you need a full-time marketer just to get the word out there. And you spend so much time on social media, it takes away from you the actual creation of things.
yeah.
you know um, so you mentioned you have your one book. Are we working on anything else, or are we just kind of going with that first book?
Well, I do have a couple of things in the pipeline right now.
Hmm.
I definitely have to start writing two other stories, with two other characters. So I do have two other series planned right now, but I had to seriously sit down and write them. But At the moment, I'm just working on Codename Hunter just to get that
Mhm.
done. Then have the second story arc come in before I start writing anything new. But yeah, I got some more characters coming up, so I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we'll slide over here and look at your website and um, get that going. But yeah, this is everything Triple Threat Comics. I mean, this is Codename Hunter, like you mentioned. It's kind of
Yeah,
your flagship title, your big title right now. Um,
yeah.
and there's a couple. Soul Eraser is another one. Is that before, after Codename Hunter?
Actually, that's this at the same time. In fact, that's actually from the Cobra publisher Eric Hernandez,
Okay,
and I forget what issue he's working on, but he's got several issues right now on the series. So far, that's been pretty well received, and people are actually enjoying it. So I'm
nice.
very excited about that. We're gonna do a crossover between both of our characters at some point on an
Hmm.
epic storytelling. So I'm very excited about that.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
It's always fun to collaborate with other creators and creative people just in general. You know,
yeah,
let's see. We got latest issues, yeah, and then support the work, right? Support
yeah,
the indie artists out there and the work that goes involved in that. Let's see. And this is going to be, yeah. So
yeah,
you have a way basically to have people order it, and let's see, this is issue one. Okay, do we have
yeah.
issue two up on Indie Planet?
Yes, we do. In fact, if you scroll at the bottom, it should be the link
It'll
should be there. Yeah, there it is.
Nice. Okay, cool. And then you got issue three as well. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
yeah, it's really important nowadays to be able to be easily found, I should say. You know, uh, it's Indie Planets. I started out with Indie Planet, many,
yeah,
many, many years ago, and it's a nice print on demand place. They do pretty good printing. So, if you're into the print on demand, Indie Planet's a really good place for that. That's your main character, Hunter?
yeah. Yeah, his name is Sean Wade, and he is an
Okay,
IID agent, which stands for Intergalactic Intelligence Division.
nice. We have some interior pages here. We can flip through those. Yeah. Is it expand on the story a little bit for those that might not know? You said, it's your flagship title, so obviously very important and passionate about it. What do we
Yeah.
got going on?
Okay, it takes place in the year 3039, so it's set in the future.
Hmm.
A weapon, a government weapon, has been stolen, by enemies unknown to us yet, and the lead agent Sean Wade now has to investigate and recover that weapon if possible. But the story goes very crazy. It escalates very quickly, and we find out that the enemy is coming, and the enemy's not going to stop.
Nice, nice. Yeah, and do you do the whole book yourself, or do you have like a colorist, inker, those types of things?
Well, that's the thing. Eric Hernandez actually colored the first issue, and then I took
Okay,
over the coloring. But everything else I do pretty much by myself.
okay,
And for issues 4 and 5, I'm having an inker named Enrique Lopez, a very talented guy, come in and ink, the last two issues.
mm-hmm. Okay, that's really cool. Yeah, it's a fine line between affordability and style and marketing and all this good stuff. Like it's nice to have other names attached to a book because it's obviously helps with the marketing, but
Yeah,
it can be a financial constraint, for a lot of people out there, a lot of indie creators. I mean, even I struggle financially a little bit, making sure money wasn't an object. We'd obviously pay the best artists out there, but
yeah,
or the highest price maybe. I don't know if that always works. The highest price isn't always the best. um, Yes, I mean this is fun. It looks like it's action filled. There's a lot going on. Like you said, it escalates very quickly,
yeah,
and you do all the cover work as well.
yeah. In fact, Enrique did the ink work for the cover, and it's definitely one of my favorite covers.
Nice, nice. Yeah, it looks good. It looks really good.
Yeah,
Uh, Cool. Yeah, it's um it's a challenge. I could say. And then is this really the only place that folks can find you at? Are we looking, I mean, obviously I know you're on socials, right? So,
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be putting the book on other websites, obviously, especially
okay.
the indie friendly ones, because
Hmm.
again, more exposure. And then I'm thinking with when we get went through five all, on the complete set, I'm gonna put that on Amazon as well to make sure again people find
Hmm.
the book. But as to everything else, I do have a Kickstarter coming. I'm in the middle of trying to figure out when to release it. It's most likely
Okay.
going to be in the new year,
Yeah.
after December, because again, nobody's going to buy anything, that's not a Christmas gift. So,
Yeah. Is there a pre-launch page up for it yet?
not yet, but I'm going to set it
Okay.
up, I think, this month. So, once
Nice.
that actually is set, I'm going to send the link to my social media accounts as well as
Hmm.
to my friends so everyone can follow me. But yeah, so far, I've edited a trailer which will be launched very soon. I'm very excited about it.
Nice.
It's got new artwork, and because I took some animation courses for the past year, I'm going to
Yeah.
add some motion comics feel to it.
Oh, nice. Nice. And you're doing that all yourself then?
Yeah, yes, I am.
Yes. So you really are a one-man show, I mean, for the most part.
Well, that's the thing, I because I was so fascinated about this stuff, and I'm like, well, why not? I might
Yeah.
as well do it myself. It's cheaper, to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Because it does cost when you actually have other, writers or other artists to come in. Because obviously you have to pay them because again,
Yeah.
they're working artists themselves, so it's only fair. But what the great thing about people that I'm collaborating with is they generally want to work with me, even
Hmm.
for free. Because they like me, they like what I have to offer, and it gives them an opportunity to grow their portfolio. So yeah,
Yeah, that's an interesting topic there. Is just kind of branching out, having people work with you. I've done my fair share of kind of free work or work for exposure type of thing. And I think all
yeah,
of us, whether we're writers, artists, whatever, we reach that level where it's like, okay, we built some sort of a foundation. We have something out there, so we don't necessarily need to work for free.
yeah,
So it kind of becomes like, I think for a lot of new artists or artists, writers that want to break into the industry, it might be frowned upon by some, but doing, a page for free or doing a sample page or showing, like, hey, I'll kind of take the initiative and do this thing. It goes a long way for creators because it shows that you are determined. You're not just a flash in the pan, right? Or you're not just someone kind of scamming, because obviously, like, even now there's a lot of kind of scam artists. They've always been there, but I just think it's like amplified with social media. You
yeah.
launch a Kickstarter and you get like 10 emails of people saying, hey, we can promote this for you, and you're like, no. So
No, no,
um
no.
yeah, and you do the Kickstarter all yourself as well, it seems like. You build it all out, set it all up, do all the promotional stuff for it.
Yeah, yeah. Because again, it's important, especially to learn that stuff,
Hmm.
very, very quickly. Because again, you don't have everyone to rely on to do that. You have to learn how to do that. You have to also
Hmm.
learn how to, make a budget, for the Kickstarter. Say,
Hmm.
okay, this is exactly the goal of how much I think they should, as you donate. Of course, that exceeds the amount that you already pledge,
Right.
and sometimes it goes even higher. So you don't want to let those people down. You don't want to let those
Right.
backers down. So
Yeah.
it is your responsibility to make sure that the books get delivered to where they're going to go, and also just to keep the fans updated, saying, okay, here's what's happening. This is going to be
Hmm.
delayed a little bit because of this artist or so and so. Again, this
Hmm.
is your responsibility. And sometimes you hear, horrible stories where people, just disappear and they take all of the backers' money.
Yeah, yeah. We've I haven't, thankfully I have not experienced that, but having such uh I'd say a relatively larger social presence, just with the amount of friends that I have on social media, and I mean, I kind of consider them social friends because I don't know a lot of
Yeah,
them personally, but the stories are endless of, people just kind of taking the money and running for Kickstarter. And I'm the same way. I'm very dedicated to the fans, dedicated to providing them with the best product, the best printed book that I can afford, basically, right? And it's always for me, like I don't launch a Kickstarter, with even like Luke issue 2. I'm finishing the lettering this week, and then the campaign
hmm
still has a couple more weeks. So the books are typically done 90% before I even launch a campaign. And the last 10% is either just finishing up some of the pages, lettering, edits, things like that. Which, as a writer, we could like sit there and edit till the sun goes down. It's just
yeah.
always an ongoing thing. How do you handle? I would say, for me, like I did Ice Pick all by myself. Annabelle had an art team. Luke has a artist. He kind of handles everything. And since it's black and white, I don't need colors. But how do you handle writing and editing on top of like the art? Like, eh, do you have your panel layouts kind of in mind when you're writing your scripts, or do you kind of change it up? Do you do final edits to the script after? Because you're like, draw this awesome page, and then you got to kind of fiddle with the word balloons to make it flow right. How do you kind of handle
Yeah.
that process?
Well, here's the thing, I always have a drawing pad that's next to me while I'm writing. So what I do
Oh,
is
okay.
this: I do rough thumbmbannels,
Okay.
because just to figure out, okay, exactly what I want the scene to be in, what I want to see, because I already know what's going to happen in that issue. Because, and this is a very key point for those who want to be writers, you know, I outline everything,
Hmm.
especially what's going to happen on this page or this page. Just the whole issue. I have it all outlined. So I already know I have a rough idea, but I do thumbnails while I'm writing the script. Now, sometimes, I may change the thumbnails while I'm actually drawing the physical comic, because I may have a better idea that I did when I did the thumbnails.
That's interesting. I also do an outline, but I'll do a general outline, say for like 4 issues of Luke.
Yeah,
I have a general outline of like, here's the villain, this is what's going on. And my stories are very much hero villain kind of related. They're not, I mean, that's what they focus on. So I typically will and I plot out a villain first. I always my research leads me what would be an interesting villain, and then I find something. And since I'm in the more world of like supernatural, you're more like it seems like spy espionage type of stuff.
yeah,
That's more
yeah.
grounded in real world things, and I do more a little bit more supernatural things. But I also plot the script out. This is what I want these 4 issues to be, and then I do individual plots for each issue. Like this is what I want, you know, happen in issue 1. I don't typically go like page by page, but I will
Yeah.
give the artist, if I'm working with an artist, a quick like, hey, this is a summary of page 1, right? This is what's kind of going on. If it's something that is really relevant, I like to give the artists kind of free will, and I know
Yeah.
like you're the artist, so we want to draw those like over the top or fun, exciting pages, but the stories don't always have that, right? You always got to have that moment that kind of cools it down, does a little bit of dialogue, explains things, what's going on. How do you balance the action with maybe a little bit slower parts?
That's the thing, it is a balance. And typically, how I write the stories is I write them as if I'm writing movies,
Okay.
you know, because I feel that cinema really does help with those type of things. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, what's the action scene? What's the dialogue scene? If you read issue 3 of Conan Hunter, it's very much dialogue heavy, because a lot is happening,
Hmm.
but you have to make sure that even the dialogue scenes, not a moment is wasted.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Is there any particular movie that your books are based off of, or Conan Hunter is based off of, or
Well,
influenced?
it's influenced by a couple of things. It's influenced by James Bond, obviously,
Nice,
uh, Star Trek, Star Wars, and even Guardians of the Galaxy.
nice. That's a tall list of very. pronounced, profound influences there. Yeah, I love all those actually. You know,
Yeah.
just the whole James Bond. I didn't like the last film too much. But other than that, like
Nobody did. Nobody did. He
I
dies,
don't think
nobody did.
anybody liked that.
No.
I was kind of hyped for it too because my wife loves James Bond, and we were just like, what? And speaking of film and stuff, we just finished watching Alien Earth, and it's the same thing. Like we were kind of
Oh.
deflated with that, and it's just like I heard maybe they're canceling season 2 now. I don't even know.
I preferred Alien Romulus, if I'm being honest. I thought that was a better crafted story so far.
Yeah, I think the story was good. I have kind of nerd issues with Alien Romulus, but
Yeah.
I think production wise it was great, and I'm a sucker for good production. It kind of goes a long way for me. If it looks good
Yeah.
and sounds good, I'll forgive a lot of like story plot holes. But yeah, it's interesting that like you base a story off James Bond and but you have these other like wild kind of influences, Star Trek and stuff like that. Like you would never think that those two things would kind of fit together. But if you're in the future, spies are going to be they're forever.
Yeah.
I feel like you're always going to have spies
Yes.
no matter what year it is. So
Exactly.
in some of the pages, it looks like there's like holograms and really cool spy stuff, futuristic, but
Yeah.
also kind of action adventure spy stuff. Um, so that's interesting. Is there any kind of process? Do you do everything like traditional, like pencil to paper? You mentioned sketching out your layouts and things, or do you
Yeah.
do some things digital?
Well, the first issue I did traditional, which was paper and pencil and ink, because
Hmm.
that's how I was trained. It wasn't until, I really started using my, tablet, which is a Wacom system, to really start drawing things on there because I felt it was easier and less messy. First of all,
Hmm. And so you ended up doing issues 2 and 3. Kind of all the other issues are digital. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I do digital layouts. For those that don't know, I think it's much quicker, and you could probably attest to this. Like doing something digital, once you get used to it, I will say there is
yeah,
definitely a learning curve for drawing on a tablet. At least the I would say the smaller kind of Wacom tablets, not the actual display tablets, because there's two different things, right? We
yeah,
have the
yeah,
smaller ones that are definitely less expensive, and then you have a little bit larger ones that are a separate monitor that is like a touch
yeah,
screen almost, and you can draw on that. I had a smaller Wacom tablet as well, and it took a
mm,
while to like draw without looking. Like I'm looking on my computer screen, and my hand
yeah,
is doing the drawing. But and then I upgraded to an actual like drawing monitor because I just felt it's a little bit bigger screen and I can do it a little bit better. But yeah, you feel that doing things digital is a little bit quicker for you, or is it just kind of you're able to do things differently than you can pen to paper?
Well, it is definitely different, and I think it is much easier for me, mostly because I could zoom in on certain things because
Hmm.
actually have one of those touch monitors, especially on facial expressions. I could zoom in. What's also great, I think, working digital is the special and visual effects.
Hmm.
You could accomplish stuff that you couldn't necessarily accomplish on the actual paper. I mean, you could, but it wouldn't produce some very engaging, imagery.
Yeah, that's true. I do a lot of like magic lens flares, like all the kind of fun over the
Yeah,
top stuff. I kind of like that. I've heard someone say, write comics that you want to read. That's what I do. I draw the way like artwork I want to
exactly.
look at. So I'm a little selfish that way, I guess. But the fans like it. The fans like what you do as well. So it's important for us to stay to like what we do, to love what we do, and if doing something that we want to see is part of that, then that's okay because that also can be an internal motivation, because we're done with something and like you said, that cover, oh, that's my favorite cover. Like I drew that, it was inked in, I colored it, I'm very proud of it. So that's interesting. I tend to like do digital layouts. They are quicker. And then I print those out in blue line onto 11 by
Yeah,
17 traditional art boards. And then I will well, I'll do my pencils. I scan those, blue line my pencils, and then I'll do traditional inks. So this way, I kind of have original pencils, original inks for customers. And I've sold like oddball stuff. Like someone will buy the inks but not the pencils, or they only want pencils, they only buy inks. So just having that kind of variety of product, I guess, is important. And do you do any? I mean, we talked about the fans and getting out there for conventions. Is that something you actively kind of do every year, or is it just when you can, when you have the time, money, those types of things?
I definitely try to do it every year, but of course the costs, at conventions are, well, that's for another story.
Ballooning.
Yes, but I do make an effort to try to get the books out there, get my face out there in conventions, and some of them have been small, because that's much easier than some of the bigger ones,
Hmm.
and you get recognized more at the small ones.
Yeah.
I've noticed.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
agree. I do one. I got one coming up actually next Saturday, November 15th, and it's a 1 day show, but it's one
yeah,
of the best shows I do. And it's hard to kind of imagine, like, not is it just the best because of the fan support, but like even financially, like it's still a 1 day show outperforms a 3 day show. Actually, I was at Emerald City Comic Con, which is in Seattle. It's one of the largest ones in the country, and this 1 day show outperforms that financially, and that's a 4 day show.
wow,
So it's all perspective, right? It's
yeah,
like,
exactly,
and I try to maintain that. Like, I don't let the lows kind of get me down too much. I don't let the highs kind of get me too excited about things. I just try to maintain consistency when producing. Do you have any plans to kind of, we talked a little bit about your next 4 issues. You're going to launch a Kickstarter in January, but you're primarily sticking with this character, this story arc, and when it's done, you're going to work on the other characters and story arcs.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I can probably talk about this right now. I'm working on a sci-fi western, character.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about that. It's a masked gunslinger, so I'm very excited about that because I love westerns and
Hmm.
still future settings. I think it's a fantastic combination.
Hmm.
Then I'm doing a detective story. I'm actually writing that with my dad right now.
Oh,
Actually,
wow. That's cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a great collaboration. Other than that, I'm doing other simple things. I'm writing some stuff, some audio dramas for another YouTube channel, Nuverse Creative. So
Okay.
that's pretty much fan stuff.
Okay.
It's but still, it's writing. It's writing audio dramas. I like that, and at some point, I'd like to turn Codename Hunter into an audio drama.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with audio dramas. Is that like a audiobook or like a audio novel type of thing?
Well, it is an audio book, but it actually has a full cast and sound effects.
Oh, okay. So it's like the old school radio
Yeah,
programs that they used to
yeah.
have. Okay. Now I'm dating myself. I didn't I didn't grow up on them, but I know of them and my mom listened to them. So yeah, I totally understand that concept. Well, War of the Worlds was a radio
Yeah,
broadcast, and people thought, for those that don't know, they when that was happening, they thought the world was being invaded by aliens. Like, true story. So
exactly.
they can be very engaging and entertaining. Immersive, I think, is another thing. They can be very immersive, so that's really cool. I'll have to look into that, check that out. Always looking for
Yeah,
something while I'm working from home, something else to listen to, something else to watch. I'm
yeah.
kind of
Well,
running out of movies and TV shows.
I know what you mean. But I can actually recommend. They actually do have the original Star Wars as radio dramas. You can
Wow.
you can
Okay.
find this on YouTube. And the reason why they created radio dramas was to promote the actual movies because when the first radio drama came out, they were actually promoting Empire Strikes Back, and then when
Okay.
Empire Strikes Back came out, they were promoting Return of the Jedi. So
Yeah.
you can find this on YouTube.
That's crazy. I'll have to look that up. That sounds really, really fascinating. Just as another form of entertainment,
Yeah,
to have that full cast, full sound effects, to get that, I guess, audio kind of immersion versus visual immersion, two different things. But yeah, no, that's fascinating. It's you're doing great work. It's a lot independent work, and it's a labor of love is what they like to call it. And I mean,
Yeah.
it really is for those out there. Like we spend a lot of nights and weekends, and we try to make our creations the best that we can make them, and hopefully fans enjoy them. And fans are enjoying what you put out there, so it's important to get out there and support indie books. I will. I guess we'll kind of, unless there's anything else, we could kind of wrap this up a little bit, and let folks know where they can find you, and we hit up the website. We'll send out when your Kickstarter is ready to rock, and it's whether it's pre-launch or it's ongoing. Let me know. I'm happy to have you back. We can always talk about that, promote it. But yeah, where can fans find you?
Well, I am on Facebook and Twitter and all that. You could just type, you just go at Facebook, just type in Triple Threat Comics. I'm there.
Hmm.
Uh, on Twitter, I'm Comics Threat.
Okay.
Instagram, Triple Threat Comics, all one word. I'm on TikTok, again, Triple
Eh,
Threat Comics.
yeah.
I actually have a Patreon page now, which I'm actually gonna, start doing even more movie reactions because I've done a couple
Nice.
already, and some video gameplays. So I'm very excited about that.
Nice.
In fact, I should probably record that soon rather than later because I'm gonna be busy. And of course, my YouTube channel, you know,
Nice.
uh, True Other Comics channel, where I host the YouTube channel where indie creators come on and even comic book creators come on, big giants. I've had Mike Corlin on. I've had the Batman producer Michael Uslan on. So yeah, I've got I've got people coming on.
Yeah, that's no, it's fun. I've been on a show and kind of been a fan of like watching other people's perspectives, and whether it be big names, small names, everyone in the middle. Like it's everyone has a story, and it's fun to listen to how people broke into the industry, or how they created these characters, how they write their characters, how they draw their characters, like all of the aspects of the creative process for whether it be indie comics or big name comics. It doesn't matter. So I really appreciate you being on the show, and we'll look forward to the next show, and we'll look forward to having you on the next time when your Kickstarter's going, or really any other time you just want to swing by and hang out and talk comics and movies.
Well, Todd, I always love to do that with you. I love to talk to you about this stuff, and yeah, I definitely want to come back, especially when we do have the pre-launch for
Mhm.
Conan Hunter. But more importantly, I just want to come back because I just like hanging with you.
Well, I appreciate that. It's always a pleasure. It's the same way with me. It's always fun being on your show, hanging out, just kind of nerding out for a little while. Hanging out. But we'll wrap this up, and I will see you guys on the next episode. And I appreciate Ian for coming out today.
Thanks very much for having me.